And of course, we're still using Claris Connect for some integrations. Our own teamwork integration is largely Claris Connect based. I know, Russell, you've been
Yeah.
working on some tweaks to that. How's that stuff going?
Yeah, good. Yeah, Claris, they've recently, with our teamwork integration, we have a couple flows that utilize the teamwork connectors and some of the Claris ones. They actually recently deprecated a couple of their connectors, the FileMaker cloud and server connectors. But luckily, they're not deprecating them to the point where they're not working. They're just not. You can't create new flows with them. But they've kind of recently favored a kind of catch-all FileMaker connector. Uh, so just kind of changing our flows slowly to use that instead. And then we have a couple other, internal flows that we use for like our internal emailing. And the goal starting those was to use, there was at one point, I think it might have just been an ETS testing, but there was a Gmail send mail connector, which we don't have access to anymore, but luckily we use Mailgun account as well. So there's a Mailgun send email. And with Connect, it's really easy to set up. You just create your webhook, and then kind of like Joe was saying, we just use Postman to test the webhook initially, and you send it your schema that you're wanting to send to your flow. Like if we trigger something from FileMaker, you just send it. Like for an email, you just give it your to, your from, your subject, and your body. And then with Postman, you just kind of give it that schema, that kind of structure, so it knows exactly what to expect in your webhook call, which makes it really easy. And then FileMaker or Claris also, instead of developers having to use insert from URL to kind of manually create that whole call, they've recently added the trigger Claris Connect flow step. And so it makes it even easier to kind of access. And then you can, if you have if you're signed in your Claris ID on both, Connect and your FileMaker app, you can easily see all the flows that are triggered or flows that are active for your projects to easily kind of just call it from there. So yeah, Connect has been a pretty fun tool to kind of slowly integrate with our apps and our solutions.
Yeah, I know with some staffing changes we've had in the last 6 months, you've gotten pushed into the Connect, becoming more of a Connect
A
expert.
little, yeah, a little bit, yeah. So kind of getting used to everything again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I'm excited about what we decided to do with doing our developer emails through Connect, and being able to eliminate a couple of cases where we had email credentials embedded in client systems unnecessarily.
Yeah, and one thing I realized, we mentioned it a couple dev meetings ago, but with the Mailgun, I was initially trying to send it to the work email, but I didn't have ever a route set up. And so I did another test with just sending an email to my personal, and it sent immediately. So I think with the Mailgun, using the Mailgun API and Connect, if you're going to be sending to your same domain that's doing the sending, I think you have to have the route set up in order to send to that same domain.
So in
So I'll try
Mailgun,
that next time.
you set up the route in Mailgun
Yeah,
settings. Oh, okay.
yeah. And I think that's just if the domain you're sending from is also the domain you're sending to, then that's where the route comes into play. But if I do a test to like a personal email, like a Gmail email with no route set up in the flow step, then it just sends kind of immediately. There's no reputation that I have to build with the
Right.
domain, which Mailgun's big on the reputation. And so you can kind of build a reputation to your domain and your IP address that you're sending from. So that's also something I'm, slowly kind of researching, is how we build up the reputation with our domain.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I'm curious, how do you set up the authentication in Connect? Does it still use the auth model where it gives you an authentication dialog and stores those credentials, or has that changed?
So yeah, so you kind of, when you build your flow step, if you select a connector using, a product we haven't quite used yet, it'll ask you then to, input your credentials for that connector app. And then once you have that kind of secured and connected, and it's been validated, then you have access to the connectors through that app inside Connect.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy. It's just write in Connect to get everything kind of configured.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excited about the changes that Claris is making in a couple of little ways for some of the licensing where we'll be able to use Connect as a go-to resource for, especially for something simple like this. It's just included with the client's overall licensing. We don't have to have a discussion with them about cost. We can just grab the tool we want to use, at least for things that Claris Connect supports. Obviously, we're going to go straight to the API for some things or use different tools for other things. But for some things, I think Claris Connect's definitely quick and easy.
Yeah, and then you get 5 free flows if you have FM, which makes it even more of a
Easy.
yeah.